A stray's journey to home. In a quiet neighborhood, amidst the hustle and bustle of city life, there existed a stray dog named Leo. His life was one of constant struggle, survival, and loneliness. With no one to care for him, Leo roamed the streets, scavenging for food and shelter wherever he could find it. His days were spent navigating dark alleys and dodging other stray animals in search of scraps. He had learned to fend for himself, but the deep longing for companionship and safety never left him. One fateful morning, as Leo wandered through a local park in search of food, he caught the eye of Anna, a kind-hearted woman in her mid-40s. Anna had always loved animals, and the sight of Leo, thin and hungry, tugged at her heart. Without a second thought, she approached him, her hands extended in an offering of food. At first, Leo was wary, unsure of her intentions. After all, he had encountered many people before, but none who had shown him anything other than indifference or cruelty. But Anna was different. She didn't rush toward him or force herself upon him. Instead, she gently placed the food on the ground and sat down a few feet away, allowing Leo to come to her at his own pace. It didn't take long before curiosity overcame him, and he cautiously approached the food. As Leo began to eat, Anna quietly observed him, her heart swelling with compassion. Over the next few weeks, Anna continued to visit the park, always bringing food and sitting patiently until Leo grew accustomed to her presence. Slowly, the walls Leo had built around himself began to crumble. He allowed Anna to get closer, and eventually, after many days of patience, he let her touch him. For the first time in what felt like forever, Leo felt safe and loved. Anna, recognizing the bond forming between them, decided to bring Leo home with her. She opened her heart and her doors to the stray, providing him with a warm bed, fresh food, and most importantly, love. The transition from being a stray to a beloved pet was not easy for Leo. He had been hurt too many times before, both physically and emotionally. His past had taught him to be wary of people and to trust no one. But Anna's consistency, kindness, and patience slowly healed the scars of his past. For several months, Leo thrived in his new home. He was no longer the frightened dog scavenging the streets for survival. He had become part of a family. Anna's home became his sanctuary. He no longer had to worry about where his next meal would come from or whether he would find a safe place to sleep. He found comfort in the gentle touch of Anna's hand, in the sound of her voice, and in the warm embrace of companionship. But just as Leo began to feel secure, life threw a new challenge their way. Anna was diagnosed with terminal cancer. The news shattered her world, and she found herself facing the inevitable with quiet resignation. Despite her illness, Anna never stopped caring for Leo. She continued to feed him, walk him, and talk to him, even when her energy began to fade. Leo, in return, was a constant source of comfort. He remained by her side through the toughest days, never leaving her alone, always offering his silent companionship. As Anna's health deteriorated, she found herself in and out of the hospital. On those long days when she was away, Leo would sit by the door, waiting for her to return. He knew something was wrong, but he didn't understand why she was gone. He waited patiently, day after day, knowing deep down that she would come back to him. The time came when Anna's battle with cancer came to an end. She passed away peacefully, leaving Leo heartbroken and alone once again. The home they had shared now felt eerily quiet, but Leo's loyalty and love for Anna never wavered. He continued to live in the house, surrounded by the memories of the woman who had saved him. Though he missed her dearly, Leo had learned one of life's most valuable lessons: the power of love, the strength of companionship, and the healing power of kindness. Despite the pain of losing Anna, Leo's journey came full circle. He had gone from a stray dog with no hope, no home, and no future to a beloved companion who had known what it meant to be truly loved. In the end, Anna's love for him had transformed his life in ways he never could have imagined. And though their time together was brief, the bond they shared would last forever in his heart. Let's go into the details of the story. In the heart of the bustling city, beneath the shadows of tall buildings and the noise of crowded streets, there lived a stray dog. His name was Leo, though no one knew him by that name. To the world, he was just another forgotten soul, wandering the streets with no direction, no purpose. His fur was matted, his body thin and scarred from the harsh life he had endured. He was one of many, a creature lost in the vast anonymity of the city. Leo's days followed a predictable rhythm: wake up, search for food, find a place to sleep, and repeat. The cold concrete streets were his home, the alleyways his refuge. He had learned to survive through sheer instinct, relying on his sharp senses and quick reflexes to find scraps of food, to avoid the dangers that lurked in every corner. But despite his ability to survive, there was always a hollow ache deep inside him, a longing for something more, for love, for safety, for a place where he could rest without fear. The city was full of people, but none of them paid attention to Leo. He was invisible to them, a mere flicker in their busy lives. They passed him by without a second thought, their eyes sliding over him as though he didn't exist. To Leo, the indifference of the world was suffocating. He had no one to turn to, no one to call out to. He had been abandoned by his previous owners, left to fend for himself in a world that seemed cold and unforgiving. But Leo had learned to adapt. His instincts told him when to keep his head low and when to take risks. He knew where the best food could be found, where the safest places to sleep were, and how to avoid the dangers of other animals and the harsh weather. But there was one thing Leo could never escape: loneliness. No matter how many dogs he encountered in the city, none of them ever became his companion. They were all just as lost as he was, too busy surviving their own battles to offer comfort. One fateful morning, as Leo wandered through a park, his stomach growling with hunger, he came across a small group of people gathered in a circle. They were sitting on the grass, laughing and chatting, oblivious to the world around them. Leo, ever the cautious one, stayed at the edge of the park, watching them from a distance. He had learned that humans were unpredictable. Some were kind, while others were cruel. But for some reason, on this particular day, something in the air felt different. The park was filled with the scent of freshly cut grass and blooming flowers, a stark contrast to the cold concrete streets Leo had grown accustomed to. He couldn't remember the last time he had felt the warmth of the sun on his back, or the comfort of fresh air that didn't smell of exhaust fumes and garbage. He took a few hesitant steps forward, his paws brushing against the soft grass. His eyes darted around, scanning the park for any signs of danger. As he moved closer to the group, Leo's attention was drawn to a woman sitting alone on a bench, a small basket of food beside her. She was older than most of the people in the park, her face gentle and kind, with wrinkles that seemed to tell stories of a life well lived. She was watching the others with a quiet smile, but there was something in her gaze that caught Leo's attention. It was as if she could see him, even though he was standing in the shadows, hiding behind a tree. The woman's eyes lingered on him for a moment, and for the first time in a long time, Leo felt something stir inside him. It wasn't fear, but something much softer: curiosity, maybe even hope. Could this person be different? Could she see him as more than just a stray dog? The woman reached into her basket and pulled out a piece of bread, breaking it in half. She held one of the pieces in her hand, extending it toward Leo, her eyes never leaving him. Leo froze. He had been offered food before, but never like this. There was no hurry, no expectation. It wasn't a hand that was trying to drive him away, or a person that wanted to shoo him off. It was an invitation, a simple offering of kindness. He hesitated for a moment, his instincts still screaming at him to be cautious. He had been hurt before by kindness that turned into cruelty. But something about this woman's gentle demeanor made him lower his guard. Slowly, he took a step forward, his paws sinking into the soft grass. He could smell the fresh bread, and his stomach growled louder, urging him to take the risk. The woman smiled softly as Leo approached, her hand steady and open, the bread waiting for him. His eyes met hers for the first time, and in that moment, something unspoken passed between them. It wasn't a grand gesture or a dramatic moment. It was a quiet understanding, a moment of connection that neither of them had expected. Leo took the piece of bread from her hand, and as he chewed, he felt a strange warmth spread through him. It wasn't just the food. It was the sense of being seen, of being acknowledged, of no longer being invisible. The woman didn't speak, but her presence was enough. She continued to sit there, watching him with a calm, comforting gaze. Leo ate the bread, his heart slowly beginning to soften. For the first time in a long time, he felt a flicker of hope. Could this be the beginning of something more? Could this woman, this kind stranger, be the one to offer him the love and safety he had always dreamed of? As Leo finished the bread and looked up at her, he saw her smile again, her eyes filled with a quiet kindness that made his heart beat a little faster. It was as though she understood him without words, as though she knew exactly what he needed. And for the first time in a long time, Leo allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't alone anymore. For the next several days, Leo returned to the park, always hoping to see the woman again. At first, he stayed at a distance, his wary eyes scanning the surroundings for any signs of danger. He had learned to be cautious in a world where trust was a luxury he couldn't afford. But something about her had shifted something inside him. Her calmness, her kindness. It was as if she saw him for who he was, not just a stray dog wandering aimlessly through the city. Each day, Anna was there, sitting on the same bench, with the same basket of food beside her. She didn't rush toward him, nor did she try to coax him into approaching. Instead, she simply sat quietly, offering him the same peaceful presence. Every time he came closer, she would extend a piece of bread toward him, her eyes soft, her smile gentle. No words were exchanged, yet the silence between them spoke volumes. Leo was torn between his natural wariness and the magnetic pull of the woman's quiet kindness. His instincts told him to stay away, to continue surviving on his own, to trust no one. But Anna had been different from anyone he had encountered. She didn't judge him, didn't shoo him away like so many others had. She simply offered him a meal, and in doing so, she gave him something far more precious, her attention, her warmth. One afternoon, as the sun began to set and the park emptied, Leo found himself walking closer to Anna than ever before. He wasn't sure what drove him to move forward, whether it was hunger, or perhaps a flicker of hope deep inside him that he couldn't quite understand. But this time, something shifted within him. He no longer hesitated or looked around nervously for an escape route. He simply walked toward her, his heart pounding in his chest, unsure of what to expect, but feeling something he hadn't felt in so long: safety. As he reached her, Anna extended her hand, as she had done before. But this time, Leo didn't hesitate. He nuzzled her hand gently with his nose, accepting the food without a second thought. The warmth of her touch sent a surge of comfort through him, and for the first time in his life, Leo felt like he belonged. Anna's eyes sparkled with joy as Leo took the bread from her hand. She spoke softly, as if the words were meant only for him. "You don't have to be afraid anymore, Leo." The way she said his name, so effortlessly, so naturally, felt like a promise. Leo didn't know how she knew his name, but somehow, it felt like she had always known him. She was a stranger, yet in this moment, she felt like the only person who truly understood him. Over the next few weeks, Leo grew more and more comfortable with Anna's presence. He began to approach her not just for the food, but for the connection. Each time he came to her, he felt a little less like a stray and a little more like a beloved companion. His heart slowly opened up to her, and in return, Anna's kindness seemed to grow stronger, more sincere with each passing day. There were moments when Anna would sit on the bench, gazing out at the horizon, and Leo would lie beside her, resting his head on her lap. It was in these moments, as the wind rustled the leaves and the soft golden light of the late afternoon bathed the park, that Leo felt truly at peace. No longer did he feel like the invisible dog, abandoned and forgotten. With Anna he was seen. With Anna he was loved. But not everything was perfect. Leo's past was always there, lurking in the background. He still had the scars of his previous life, the fear of being abandoned, the instinct to retreat when things felt too good to be true. And despite Anna's gentle nature, there were days when Leo would pull away, his heart afraid of what it meant to trust again. On one such day, after spending several hours with Anna, Leo began to retreat to the shadows. His tail tucked between his legs, he slinked away from the bench, his heart pounding in his chest. The sudden surge of fear overwhelmed him. What if Anna didn't really want him? What if she was only kind out of pity, or because she felt sorry for him? Anna, Noticing Leo's retreat, didn't chase after him. She didn't call out, didn't try to coax him back with food. Instead, she simply watched him, her gaze steady, her smile unchanged. She knew he needed space, that his journey wasn't over yet. She had learned, through their quiet moments together, that Leo would come to her when he was ready. She understood the fragility of trust, the slow, painstaking process of earning it back. That evening, as the sun set and the park began to empty, Leo slowly returned to her. His steps were hesitant, unsure, but there was something different in the way he approached her this time. There was less fear in his eyes, more curiosity. He stopped just a few feet away from her, his gaze searching her face for any signs of rejection. But when Anna looked at him, her expression unchanged, Leo knew that she would wait for him. Without a word, he approached her again, slowly, tentatively, and laid down beside her on the bench. Anna gently stroked his head, her touch soft and soothing. Leo sighed, the tension in his body slowly releasing. The fear, the uncertainty, all melted away under her gentle care. For the first time, he allowed himself to believe that maybe, just maybe, he had found a place where he truly belonged. As the days grew warmer and the sun began to linger longer in the sky, Leo's bond with Anna deepened. Yet, no matter how much he tried to embrace the life she offered, something within him resisted. His past, the loneliness, the abandonment, had carved scars deep within his heart, scars that no amount of love could easily erase. For Anna, the days were filled with joy. She would wake up every morning to the sound of Leo's tail thumping against the floor as he eagerly greeted her. She cherished those moments, the quiet companionship they shared as they sat together in the park or walked along the tree-lined streets. Anna had grown fond of Leo's presence, of the way he would rest his head in her lap after a long day, seeking her affection without words. To her, Leo was no longer just a stray dog. He was family, her companion in the truest sense of the word. But for Leo, it wasn't so simple. No matter how often he nestled against Anna's side or accepted her care, the ghosts of his past haunted him. The memory of cold nights on the street, the gnawing hunger, the constant fear of being rejected again. These memories were always there, just beneath the surface. Some days, they weighed on him so heavily that it felt impossible to breathe. It was a quiet torment, but it was real. One chilly afternoon, as Anna sat on the bench reading a book, Leo wandered a little further than usual. The park was nearly empty, save for a few joggers and a couple of children playing in the distance. Leo trotted away from the familiar scent of Anna, his heart heavy. His paws tapped against the ground in rhythmic, mechanical steps, as though he was following a path he couldn't escape. His mind was a whirlwind of confusion. He didn't understand why he felt the need to pull away, why the closeness that Anna offered made him feel like he was suffocating. Wasn't this everything he had ever wanted? A home, a person who cared for him? Why, then, did it feel like a weight pressing on his chest, a tight knot that he couldn't untie? He stopped in front of a small, dilapidated fence that bordered the park. A few years ago, this had been his world, living in alleys, scavenging, never truly settling anywhere. He had always been on the move, always looking over his shoulder for the next threat. His heart thudded in his chest as the memories flooded back, more vivid than ever. The sound of his collar jingling as he ran from an angry owner, the sharp bark of other dogs chasing him away from food, the harsh reality of never being enough for anyone. No matter how hard he tried, he could never seem to fit into the world of those who lived in houses, with families. Leo turned his head toward Anna, who was sitting on the bench, eyes soft with a mixture of patience and concern. She didn't call for him. She didn't chase him down or demand that he return to her. She simply sat there, her gaze steady, a gentle smile playing on her lips. It was a smile that conveyed understanding, but also quiet sadness, as though she knew the weight of his past, the scars he carried, and the battle within him. Leo slowly padded back toward her, but his steps were heavier than before. His tail hung low, a quiet reflection of the inner turmoil he felt. He could feel the eyes of passers-by on him as he approached, their gazes flicking to him for just a moment before looking away. But this time, it wasn't the strangers who made him uncomfortable. It was himself. It was the fear inside him that still hadn't quite let go. When Leo reached Anna, he hesitated for a moment. He stood still, just inches away, his chest heaving with the weight of his thoughts. Anna looked up at him, her hand gently outstretched, not pushing him to come closer, but offering him the choice. She knew he had to come to her on his own terms. There was no rush, no demand. She had learned that love wasn't about forcing someone into something they weren't ready for. It was about being there, patiently waiting, even in the silence. Leo finally took a step forward, then another, and another, until his head was resting on her lap, just as it had so many times before. Anna's hand moved to gently stroke his fur, her touch steady and soothing, grounding him in the present moment. It was in this simple act of affection that Leo felt the first stirrings of peace. For a brief moment, the noise in his mind quieted, the weight on his chest eased, and the fear that had been clinging to him for so long began to loosen its grip. But the peace was fleeting. As much as he wanted to believe in the safety Anna offered, there was a part of him that still held back. There was a part of him that feared the day she might leave him, that feared being discarded once again, like the others had done. The memories of the street, of being abandoned, of never quite measuring up, those fears didn't go away overnight. Leo didn't know how to escape them, or if he even could. As the days passed, Anna began to notice Leo's shifts. He would come to her, but there were moments when he would pull away, his eyes distant, lost in a world of memories he couldn't escape. She didn't push him, but she understood. She knew that Leo's journey was far from over. The love she had to offer wasn't a cure for his past, but it was a steady light in the dark, a constant presence that, over time, might heal the wounds he carried. And so Anna waited. She waited for Leo to come to her, to trust her fully, and to realize that he no longer had to be afraid. But Anna knew that trust was a fragile thing, built over time, through small acts of kindness, and by showing Leo, day after day, that no matter what his past had been, he was safe now. And for Leo, each step he took toward Anna was a step toward healing. But healing, like trust, could not be rushed. It had to come at its own pace. And for Leo, that pace was slow, tender, and filled with moments of doubt. But even in those moments of doubt, there was one constant, Anna. And in the quiet corners of his heart, he began to wonder if, one day, he might truly believe that love wasn't just a fleeting thing. If, one day, he could finally believe that love could be his forever. The days continued to pass, and Anna remained steadfast in her love for Leo, offering him the space he needed, never pushing him too hard, but always there, patiently waiting for him to take the next step. But Leo's past was not something that could be forgotten easily. No matter how much time he spent in the comfort of Anna's home, no matter how many warm meals she gave him, his heart still carried the weight of all the years he had spent alone, struggling to survive in the harsh world. It was in the stillness of one quiet evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of gold and pink, that the ghosts of Leo's past began to surface. He had been lying beside Anna as she gently brushed his fur, her fingers working through the tangles, when a sudden memory gripped him. He could hear the distant sound of footsteps, the harsh voices of strangers, and the sharp, jarring command to leave the place he had once called home. He remembered the coldness of that night, the loneliness that had filled every inch of him, and the overwhelming sense of abandonment. He had been left behind, forgotten, discarded like the scraps he had once fought to find. The memory was so vivid, so real, that Leo bolted upright, his body stiff with fear. His heart raced, and his eyes darted around the room, as though expecting someone to chase him away, to take him back to that lonely life he had tried so hard to escape. Anna, startled by Leo's sudden movement, quickly knelt beside him, her voice soft and soothing. "Leo," she whispered gently, "it's okay. You're safe here." But Leo couldn't hear her. The images of the past were too strong, the feelings too overwhelming. He backed away from Anna, his body trembling, his heart caught in the grip of terror that had haunted him for so long. His tail tucked tightly between his legs, and he retreated to the farthest corner of the room, his eyes wide with panic. Anna's heart broke at the sight of Leo, her sweet, gentle dog, so full of fear, so unwilling to let go of the past that had shaped him. She knew he hadn't fully healed, that there was still so much he carried within him that she couldn't see. The pain, the confusion, the rejection, all of it still lived within him, hidden beneath the surface. And Anna realized, in that moment, that love wasn't just about being present. It was about understanding, and knowing when to give space, and when to be patient, even in the face of fear. She didn't move right away. She stayed where she was, keeping her voice calm, gentle, and steady. "Leo," she said softly, "I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. You don't have to be afraid. You're home now. You're with me." For what felt like an eternity, Leo remained in the corner, his breathing heavy, his eyes searching the room, as though looking for any sign of danger. Anna's words, however, slowly began to sink in, their soothing tone washing over him. She didn't rush him. She didn't demand that he come back to her, or force him to trust her. She simply stayed where she was, her presence a silent promise of safety, of constancy. And after what felt like hours, Leo finally began to calm. His body, which had been tense and rigid with fear, started to relax, and the frantic, erratic beating of his heart began to slow. His eyes, wide and uncertain, turned back to Anna. She was still sitting there, still waiting, her arms gently extended toward him. The tears in his eyes slowly began to fade, replaced by a quiet sorrow that seemed to echo deep within his chest. He took a tentative step toward her, then another. His movements were hesitant, unsure, but with each step, the fear that had once held him captive began to loosen its grip. And as he finally reached her, his body trembling, he slowly lowered his head, resting it on her lap. Anna's hands gently stroked his fur once more, her touch steady, unwavering. She didn't need to say anything. She knew that Leo was still working through his pain, still battling the remnants of a past that was too much for him to carry alone. In that moment, Leo allowed himself to lean into her touch. For the first time in a long time, he felt the weight of his fear begin to lift, even if just for a moment. He didn't fully understand it, but something inside him shifted. The past that had clung to him so tightly began to loosen, bit by bit, as Anna's love surrounded him. But the road to healing was never straight. It was never easy. There were still moments when Leo would retreat, when the memories of his past would surge to the surface, and he would be overcome with fear once again. But Anna never stopped being there. She was patient, gentle, and understanding. She knew that healing for Leo was going to take time. Time to trust, time to let go of the pain, and time to believe that he deserved to be loved. The days that followed were a mix of progress and setbacks. Some days, Leo would lie next to Anna, his body relaxed, his heart at ease. Other days, he would withdraw, the shadows of his past creeping back into his mind. But through it all, Anna remained his constant. She didn't force him to change. She didn't demand that he let go of his past. She simply loved him in all his brokenness, in all his fear, and in all his uncertainty. And slowly, Leo began to believe in that love. He began to believe that maybe, just maybe, he could be healed, not by forgetting the past, but by accepting it and moving forward with the one person who had shown him that love could still exist, even in the darkest of times. As the seasons changed, so did Leo. The once terrified dog, who had wandered aimlessly through the streets, now found himself in a home filled with warmth and love. But the journey of healing, as Anna knew, wasn't a linear one. It wasn't a simple transition from fear to trust, from loneliness to companionship. Leo's past, like a shadow, would continue to follow him. But with each passing day, the shadow seemed to grow smaller, less overpowering. Despite the progress Leo had made, there were still moments when the past would surface, uninvited, and drag him back to the place where he felt most vulnerable. Some nights, he would wake up in a panic, his body trembling, as though he had forgotten for a moment where he was. Anna would find him huddled in the corner of the room, his eyes wide with terror, as though he were still waiting for someone, to come and take him away. But these moments were becoming fewer and farther between. As Anna continued to offer him the comfort of her presence, Leo slowly learned that he didn't have to run anymore. He didn't have to hide. There was no one to chase him, no one to abandon him. There was only Anna, with her steady love, her quiet understanding, and her unwavering faith in him. One evening, as the golden hues of the sunset filled the sky, Leo found himself lying next to Anna on the couch, his head resting on her lap, as she absent-mindedly ran her fingers through his fur. For the first time in a long while, Leo felt at peace, not just physically, but emotionally as well. His body was relaxed, and his mind was no longer racing with the shadows of his past. He was here, with Anna. In this moment, he was safe. Anna's hand moved gently, tracing the scars on Leo's body. Scars that told the story of a life lived in fear and solitude. Some were faded and old, reminders of the many battles he had fought, while others were newer, the marks of the struggles he had faced in the months since they had met. But Anna didn't see these scars as a sign of weakness. She saw them as a testament to Leo's resilience. Each scar, each wound, had been a part of the journey that brought him here. They were his past, but they no longer defined him. "You've come so far," Anna whispered softly, her voice full of admiration. Leo looked up at her, his eyes filled with quiet gratitude. It wasn't just the food, the shelter, or the care that he appreciated. It was her constant presence, her belief in him, her patience. She had never rushed him, never tried to force him to heal. She had simply been there, a steady presence in his life. And that was what had made all the difference. The days began to feel different. Instead of fear, there was a sense of calm that settled in Leo's heart. He had never known what it felt like to truly be home. But now, as he lay beside Anna, he understood. Home wasn't just a place. It was a feeling, a sense of belonging, of being seen, of being loved. There were still days when Leo would pull away, his old fears creeping up, reminding him of the streets, of the loneliness, of the betrayal. But those days were becoming less frequent, and each time he retreated, he came back a little faster, a little more willing to trust. He had learned that he didn't have to be perfect to be loved. His scars, his fears, his past, they didn't make him any less deserving of love. And slowly, he began to believe that. One morning, after a particularly quiet night, Leo woke up to find Anna standing at the door, holding a leash in her hand. Her face was alight with excitement, her eyes sparkling with a joy that Leo couldn't help but mirror. It had been a while since they had gone on their daily walk together, but today felt different. Today, Anna was ready to take Leo somewhere new. Somewhere that wasn't just a park, but a place where he could truly start to move forward. "Ready?" Anna asked, her voice full of hope. Leo hesitated for just a moment, a flicker of doubt crossing his mind. What if the outside world was still too much for him? What if he couldn't handle the change? But as he looked into Anna's eyes, he felt the warmth of her trust, the strength of her belief in him. He had come this far, and if he was ever going to truly heal, he needed to take that step forward. With a gentle woof, Leo stood up and trotted over to Anna. She clipped the leash onto his collar, and together they stepped out the door. For the first time, Leo felt the soft tug of the leash, not as a constraint, but as a symbol of the bond they shared. It wasn't something that held him back. It was something that helped him move forward. As they walked down the street, Leo's paws patted softly against the pavement. The world around him seemed different now. The familiar sounds, the people passing by, the rustling of leaves in the breeze, they no longer felt threatening. They felt safe. He was no longer a stray dog, wandering aimlessly. He was a companion, walking beside the person who had given him a home. Anna kept a steady pace. Her hand relaxed on the leash, allowing Leo to lead when he wanted to and following his pace when he needed to slow down. Together, they walked through the neighborhood, the streets now a part of their shared world. And with each step Leo took, he felt a little less weighed down by his past, a little more grounded in the present. As the walk came to an end, Leo returned to Anna's side, his tail wagging softly, his body relaxed. The journey wasn't over, but it had changed. There was no longer a fear of what lay ahead. There was only the hope of a future filled with love, trust, and companionship. And as Anna opened the door to their home, Leo walked inside, knowing that he had finally found where he belonged. Not just in the house, but in his heart. He was home. He was loved. And that was all that mattered. As time passed, Leo's transformation was nothing short of miraculous. the stray dog who once wandered the cold, lonely streets, now lay content and at peace in the warm embrace of Anna's love. Their bond had grown into something beautiful, something that could never be broken. Anna had given Leo a home, but in return, Leo had given Anna something even more precious, a lesson in resilience, loyalty, and the power of love to heal even the deepest scars. Though the echoes of his past still lingered, they no longer defined him. Leo had learned that home wasn't just a place. It was the people you share it with. It was the safety and warmth of a love that accepted you, scars and all. With Anna by his side, Leo had found the courage to move forward, leaving behind the pain of his past and embracing the love that awaited him. As they sat together on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky with hues of pink and orange, Leo felt a sense of peace he had never known before. He was no longer the stray dog with no purpose, no future. He was loved. He was home. And for the first time, he truly understood what it meant to belong. Message of the story: no matter how broken we may feel or how difficult our past may be, there's always hope for a new beginning. Love and patience have the power to heal wounds that time alone cannot touch. Sometimes, all it takes is someone who believes in us, someone who sees our worth, even when we can't see it ourselves. Leo's story is a reminder that we all deserve a second chance, a chance to heal, and to find the love and acceptance that we are all worthy of. If you enjoyed Leo's story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Help us spread the message of hope, healing, and the incredible bond between humans and animals. Let's share this story with those who need a little reminder that love can change everything.